Hi everyone, welcome back to Flutterverse. I hope you have watched our first session where we have shown you how you could install Flutter and Android Studio. So in today's session, we are going to learn the basics of programming in Dart, and we'll also try to create a a Flutter project and run it on emulator or your phone. So what I want you all to do is be on this website called dartpad.dev. I'll leave this link on the description below. It's an online code editor of Dart. So be here. Okay, so now we will be writing a very first program in Dart. So whatever program you are going to write, it comes under the main function. Well, the main function is the starting point or the entry point in Dart. So the very first program which we'll be writing is obviously going to be printing hello world. So I'll just type print, and in double quote, which represents a string, I'll type hello world. Okay, and make sure you end up the statement with a semicolon, and when I tab on run, you can see that hello world gets printed out in the console. Okay, now what I want my name to be assigned to a variable. Okay, so my name is always going to have a data type of string until my dad is Elon Musk, right? So you just type a data type which is string, then you give a variable name which is going to be my name, and I'll assign it to a value which is Aniket Singh and end it with a semicolon. Okay, now when I try to print my name, Aniket Singh gets printed out in the console. Cool. Now I want to store a int value. So you just need to change the data type now. To change from string to int, and variable, you can give it a variable name. You have to give it a variable name which is a number, and assign a value to it which is 30. And when I print a number, you can see that 30 gets printed out in the console. What if I change from 30 to 30.23? It gives us an error that float is not supported by a data type called int. Okay, so I'll just simply change from int to double, and you can see that 30.23 gets printed out in the console. Okay, so what if I don't have any idea that the value coming from the user is int or is double? I'll simply change from int double to num, which accepts both the value, which it also takes 30.23, which is which is a float value or decimal value, and also 30. You can see that it doesn't give us an error when we try to run this. It prints it in the console. Okay, now I don't know the value coming from the user is going to be a number, is going to be a string, is going to be a boolean. Okay, so in this case I simply give it a data type of variable var. Okay, and now I'll give it a name which is unknown type, and I can print. When I try to print this thing, it successfully print string, and when I try to change the data type from string to a number, it'll also print the number which is 20. When I try to change from number to a boolean value which is true, it is also going to print the boolean value. So it takes everything, it takes every data type. Okay, now let's look at list. So list is similar to array in other programming language. List allows us to store multiple values of same or different data types. So to initialize list, you have to type list and then give it a variable name which is going to be user names, and inside it, so the name is going to have a data type of string. So you can specify it here, like the list is going to have uh, values of type string inside the list. So I'll enter my name here, then I'll enter 2 3 more name, and okay, so when I print user names user names you can see that this whole thing is going to be printed out in the console. Now what if I only want to print my name here? I could simply give it an index value which is going to be 0, because in Dart the list it has the list always starts from 0. So when I run it, you can see my name gets printed out in the console. Now let's see how you could print out the name individually using for loop. So you can write for int I from 0 to I less than usernames dot length, length. Okay, and then I'll be iterating over the list. So I type here print user names of index number I. Okay, so when I print this thing, you can see that Aniket, Shivam and Ninad gets printed out individually. Now the easiest way of doing the same thing in the list is using for each. So I could use for each to print the same thing but in the easier way. So I could write user names dot for each for each e, and then I'll be printing print e. Okay, so you can see that again the same thing gets printed out, but it is the much simpler way. Now let's see how you could use the conditional statement in that. So I create a program where if this variable my name, if my name is equal to Aniket, then it is going to print hello Aniket. Okay, if my name is not Aniket, then it is going to print I don't know you. Okay, so if we run this thing, it is going to say hello Aniket. Okay, now what if I change the name from Aniket to Shivam? It is going to print out I don't know you. Okay, so this was the conditional statement. Now let's see switch. Okay, now let's see how the switch statement work in a Dart. I'll explain this thing using an example. I'll create a variable called choice, and by default I'm going to give it a value 0. Okay, then I'll create a switch statement which is going to take choice inside it, and it is going to have multiple cases here. So case when the choice is 0. Okay, so I'll print I am 0. Okay, and then we are going to break this statement, and now we are going to repeat the same thing 2-3 more times. So for case, if the case is 1, I'm going to print I am 1, and if the case is 2, I'm going to print I am 2. Okay, so as the case by default is 0 here, you can see that I'm 0 will be printed out in the console. Yeah, so I'm 0 gets printed out in the console. What if I change this thing to 1? You can guess it. So I'm 1 will, yeah, so I'm 1 gets printed out in the console. Now what if I change the value to 5? Here a program breaks down because we don't have case 5. So in this case, what you can do is you can have something called default. Okay, default. So in this case, I could print out unknown number. Okay, so when I try to rerun this program, you can see that unknown number gets printed out here in the console because we don't have case 5, right? For example, if I again create a case where the number is going to be 5, I could print out I am 5. So here the choice is 5. It will print that I am 5, right? Now if I change this thing to 6, which we don't have in a case, it is going to print unknown number. Okay, so now we have completed the basics of programming in Dart. So after this, we are going to see how you could how you could create a your first project in Flutter, and we'll also see its file structure, and then try to run it in your mobile application, in your mobile phone, and even in emulator. Okay. Now to create your very first Flutter project, open Android Studio, and after opening it, click on a new Flutter project. Okay, and after clicking that, click on Flutter here, and it will automatically detect the SDK or the path which we uh, which we pasted in the global environment variable there. Click next, and here give the project name. I'm going to write Flutterverse, and you can select the project location where you want it to be saved. Okay, and I want my application to be running in only Android, so I'll only select Android here. After doing all this stuff, you have to click on finish. Okay, so now wait for some time. It is going to create a project for us, and it is and Android Studio is going to open. Okay, now click on project and click on Flutterverse. Okay, so the very first thing you can see here where we are going to write our code in Flutter is going to be library folder. Okay, inside the library folder we are going to have some uh, like we have inbuilt program written here which is a counter application. Okay, so ignore this thing for some time. So just keep in mind that whatever program which we write is going to come under this folder library. Okay, now what, like I want my mobile application to run only in some specific versions of Android. Like I want my application to run above Android 8 to Android 12. Okay, so what I can do is go select this folder Android, and then Gradle, sorry, Android, then click on app, then build.gradle. Here you can see that we have minimum SDK version which is 16, and then targeted SDK version which is 30. Okay, so what I could do is I'll just show you the Android SDK versions. Okay, so here you can see that Android API level 2027. So here you can see that the minimum SDK version which is supported by our application is going to be 16. Okay, but we don't want our application to support Android version Jelly Bean. We want our application to support from Android 8, which is Oreo. So we'll type the Android version to 26. Okay, 26, and targeted SDK version is the maximum Android version you want your application to be running on. So in our case, it is going to be Android 11 because Android 10 is 29. Okay, so as we have now configured the Android version which we want our application to be running on the phone. Now yeah, and the application ID, this thing is very important when you do the backend stuffs and all, but for now please ignore this too also. Okay, so this folder is done. Now what if you want your application to have some icon, like you want to change from the default icon to a custom icon. Okay, so click on src, which is a source folder, then a main. Here you can see there is a resource folder. Okay, res, where all the different size of icon are given here. Okay, so you can give the custom, which we are going to see in the later part of the video, in the probably in the next week. Okay, so this thing is done, and please ignore the file which we are not going to see in this video because not every file is important for us now. Okay, now we want to, now you can see this is perspec.yml. Here we can have our assets saved in case that we can access them in our application. Okay, so you can uncomment this and give it the path where your assets are. For example, if I want some image to be here, i'll I'll add a folder called asset, and in that asset I'll add an image, so I could give like asset slash image name. Okay, so but before that you should make sure that you have uncommented this thing up. Now this thing is also important because we can here change, we can add our dependencies too, where we can add our custom icons and all. Okay, so this is the place where we are going to come more frequently. Okay, so this were the files in the folders which were important for now. Now let's try to run this thing, run this application, your emulator. You can use your phone too. So what you need to do is connect your phone using USB, and then in settings enable USB debugging. Okay, so once you enable USB debugging, connect your phone with a USB, and then you can see the name of a phone here. Okay, for example, if you're using OnePlus Nord, the phone names comes here. Okay, so now I have my emulator ready. It's running here. What I'm going to do is ignore this thing. I'll run this Flutter project. So it is now going to create some dependencies and all, and it is going to run our application in this mobile. I highly recommend to use your physical Android phone, or a physical Android phone, because if you have low configured machine, for example, if you have a machine which has less than 8 GB of RAM, so please use your physical phone, because your your whole machine is going to hit up a lot because Android Studio is itself a very heavy IDE. Now you can see that our build is complete for the application. Now it is installing the application, and the application is installed here. So it's the counter app. When you click on this thing, you can see that the number gets updated by 1. Okay, so this was the demo of how you could run your application in Android phone or emulator, and we have also seen the file structure in the Android Studio. Now in the next video we'll know more about the widgets, more about writing a first code or first UI in Flutter, and then we'll try to make a custom UI of our own, or we could clone some big startup or a company's UI, for example Cred, or if you want we can also clone Spotify or Amazon. Okay, so we'll do that in the later part of this session. So for this video, that was it. We'll see you in the next one.